today. Uh, and looking forward to sharing some of these thoughts with you all. And can't wait till next time I come back. I'll be there in person. But very thankful for technology. So the thoughts that I have prepared for today, the talk, is really talking about true freedom. And we want to explore what that is. And, our soul's destiny is to realize this true state of infinite divine bliss and freedom. And that sounds great, but when we have to stop and really ask ourselves, what does that really mean? We live in a world today where many people feel like life has no meaning. And we're hearing that more and more and seeing studies about how people are feeling a little depressed. But is this true? Is this that may be the truth that they're having? But when we stop and really start asking the questions about us harnessing this true freedom, are we victims to the society that we live in? Are we victim to our economy, to our belief systems? And we've had a lot of discussion about our country, a country that was born of good ideas, but maybe we missed the mark on many of them, or is it over for us? I don't think so. I happen to believe that we're probably at the beginning, that we're moving forward. And we as children and people will do, we may make some mistakes along the way, but attitude about true freedom is really going to determine where we end up on this journey. So we have to ask ourselves, what is freedom for us? What is freedom for you? When you think about that, what does that freedom mean? Is it maybe, the days that you have off from work if you're working? Is it, I love to meditate. I find freedom in meditation. But there's even a deeper meaning to this. Is it dependent on what's happening around us? Or can we transcend the things that are happening around us and harness this true freedom? And as Unity Truth students, we talk about living from the inside out instead of the outside in, because if we live from the outside in, that's when we find that we become victim to the economy, victim to whatever's happening around us. And as I was preparing this talk, I was actually looking at materials from the Dalai Lama and at his perspectives on the 21st century. And I noticed that one person's name kept coming up over and over again. And as I started looking at other materials, I saw this name keep popping up, and I realized this talk is about this person. Oh, excuse me, Viktor Frankl. And how many of us have read Man's Search for Meaning? I read it when I was much younger, and I decided this year that I was going to read it again. And if you haven't, don't worry, I'll tell you what it is. Viktor Frankl was amazing. He had things happen to him, excuse me. He had things happen to him in his life that would have devastated so many people. He was in a concentration camp. He lost all those people that he loved. He went through some horrific experiences, but he was able to transcend that. And we're going to talk about that this morning. So there's many who have succeeded in living from the inside out. And this is what we base a lot of our Unity teachings on. Frankl was one of them from very early on. He was a psychiatrist in Vienna. And he was actually, in 1925, he was actually booted from the prestigious Adler Circle because he believed that we should live from the inside out. And that was not a popular theory at the time. So little did he know that within the next decade, he would be forced, he would have to test that theory in some of the most horrific ways. But as he was able to live that. Sorry, so sorry. He was able to live that. He proved what he could do. So in 1939, Viktor Frankl became head of a neurology unit in Rothschild's Vienna, Rothschild's hospital. The Nazis shut the hospital down and forced him and his family onto a trains that were meant to hold maybe 20 people, 25 people comfortably, where they would try to put upwards of 100 to 200 people in one train. So that was the beginning of his journey. And as he traveled, there's a lot of people didn't survive that. But he was able to detach himself at that time. He started immediately to detach himself from what this experience was. When he showed up at the concentration camp, he he had one thing on him that was the most precious thing. He wanted to get a manuscript that he'd written about living from the inside out, and he wanted to keep that more than anything. But it was taken away from him and destroyed. Thankfully, in 1946, we saw the rewrite of it through Man's Search for Meaning. So he entered this life where everything was taken away from him, all of his the shoes, the clothes, everything he had. He was given, scraps from somebody who had passed away to wear. The temperatures were in the 20s and 30s often. No shoes. People, oftentimes the prisoners didn't have shoes. The the Nazis figured, they weren't there to save prisoners' lives. They were there to, if they lost one, then they were there to replace them with new. They were had prisoners coming in all the time. So when he went to the concentration camp, he had his mother, brother, father, and wife. And little did he know that was the last time he was going to see him. His sister Sheila escaped to Australia, was able to get out over the border and got away. And his father died in the concentration camps from pneumonia and starvation. His wife was she went to the gas chamber when she first arrived because she wasn't deemed worthy enough, being able to handle hard labor. And so he never saw them again. He didn't know that at the time, though. And that was really important for him in helping him get through the situation. So, what did Viktor Frankl learn? What did he know? That he was able to transcend this whole experience. It must have been something pretty important, right? And it was his belief in living from the inside out that was able to help him through the situation. He said everything can be taken away from a man, but we have the freedom. We have the choice. Given any set of circumstances that we're presented with, to choose our own way. Now, I want to say with this, I'm suggesting that we do a spiritual bypass. When something happens in our lives and we're meant to experience it. A spiritual bypass is when, that happens a lot of times in New Thought. Someone says, well, you know what, that's just the way it is and life's great and let me just bypass that. We have to live through the emotions, and sometimes that means grief. So I'm not suggesting that we bypass the grief or bypass things that are happening. But what I'm suggesting here is that whatever your circumstances are, you always have a choice. You can choose your own way of reacting to it. You can choose your own life, even if it means that, in some cases, people are diagnosed with really tough illnesses. And it may be a matter of it may be that's going to be your transition from life. But as eternal beings, this is a small snapshot. We go on. So how are we going to react? And we see that oftentimes. I do a lot of pastoral care as people are making their transition. And I see people as they're getting ready to make their transition, talking to people they wanted to set things right with, or just making sure that they know that they loved and make sure that they know that how important that person was in their life. So we may not be able to change the outcome of sometimes of these things, but how we walk the journey is the one thing that we can choose. Now, Viktor Frankl it was in trouble in 1925 and later on because of what he called logotherapy. A logo is Greek. Logo is meaning. and therapy means healing. So he knew that you put those two things together and we can fulfill the meaning, actualizing values of the choices that we make. He saw that we can make decisions in our lives. And sounds pretty similar to being a Unity Truth student. We have our 5 principles. We just said them a little bit earlier. Those 5 principles talk about, yes, we have processes. We understand that we're divine. We understand that there's one power and one presence. The choices of how we live, pray, and all of these things help us with our quality of life. So Victor believed that the driver in our life is person's search for meaning. That was really important. He found that the people that came to the camps, the ones who survived, weren't necessarily the strongest, but they had search for meaning. They had meaning in their life. They had things that they were working on that they felt were really important for them to accomplish while they're here. And when a person was in tremendous pain, they were less damaged by what happened to them because they had this search for meaning. And one of his teachers said, he who has a way to live can bear almost anyhow. So if you know what your meaning is, when you have this search for meaning and you understand you as a unique spark, as a unique soul, each one of us are here. We each may have a different meaning, but we're here with that unique meaning that we have. And when we know what that is, we can accomplish anything. And that was the point of all this, is that when we're harnessing this true peace, this true power, when we're harnessing that, knowing the whys and the whats can help us accomplish that. So in 1946, Victor was rescued from a concentration camp in 1945. In 1946, he didn't wait too long. He rewrote the manuscript, but he also updated it and talked about his experiences in these camps. And he went to a couple. He was able to survive because he was never given special treatment for being a psychiatrist, but Nazis very interested in what he knew about psychotherapy. And also he was a doctor. So when the prisoners were sick, they would send him in to take care of them because they didn't want to get sick themselves. So this book is sold 16 million copies. It's in the top 10 books in the world. And it gives a perspective. And it just kind of opens our mind and our hearts to the fact that we can make choices, that we never have to be victim to anything. This man who went through horrific experiences was able to overcome that because he knew what his meaning was. And we're going to talk about that. He said, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So what he's talking about is this stimulus and response, that there's this little space in there that we can make that choice. We can choose to be the victim of a situation, or we can make a choice in how we're responding. We can make a choice to respond in a positive way. And I'm not here to, it's each person is unique. So what that choice is, we have to understand that when something happens, there is that space there. And I know that my own life, oftentimes when people will come to me with a problem, a situation, they'll say, hey, so what do I do? And I always look at it as the stimulus and response. And oftentimes I'll say, you know what? I need 24 hours to think about this because I don't want to have just a response. I don't want to have something that I don't truly mean. I want to have time to maybe meditate on it. I want to have time to maybe experience it from the other person's perspective to try to understand that. We have space. We always have that. We don't have to make a decision. I mean, of course, if it's a situation that's an accident or something like that, that's not hold the same. But we can take this situation, step into the space, make a good decision. And that's where we have growth. That's where we have freedom. That's where our freedom lies. Because this is our choice. And one of the things that he said that I thought was so important was talking about that self-actualization. We know Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we always, when self-actualization, transcendence, we're on this journey to really go and transcend everything that we have. But I love what he says about this. He says that can't be the goal. That's just the transcendence is a side effect of us having this search for meaning, being in service, doing the things that we're doing. We will have that self-transcendence. We can let that go. Oftentimes when people are getting married, I'll talk about journey that they're on. And the journey of marriage just doesn't end with the marriage. That's just the beginning. This journey is something that we're living. It's every situation that we live. So it's the answers in the journey, not in the end. And the more we forget ourselves because we're giving to that cause, we're giving, and when we work on a cause that we love, that's so near and dear to us, we often forget ourselves. We often, and have you ever noticed that when you're working on something that's really important to you, you lose all sense of time? Self-actualization is this side effect, but it's also us becoming part of it. It's about us losing sense of time because we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And he recognized that. And he said, I looked as I went deeper into everything, try to figure out how did he arrive at this. He actually had 4 keys to life's meaning. I added the 5th because I thought it was really important. So giving the power of faith, I added because it's part of the 12 powers. It's the first power of the 12 powers, and it's a foundational power. And I believe that on this journey, having that power of faith is the foundational principle to all of this. So we know that we can, by us choosing, we know that everything is going to be fine. We know that we have the faith to overcome anything, or the faith in other people, or just our faith in this one presence and one power, this amazing, amazing life that we have. The power of faith to know that each one of us has the divine. And for him, that was a big step because he was dealing with people that were really committing atrocious behavior. So that power of faith, I believe, is the driver in this. But then he talked about synchronicity. So we had the synchronicity, this power of, so even in the outside world, things can appear to be at the worst. If we stop, we'll find things that all of a sudden we'll find synchronicity with. So it happens when all of a sudden, you're standing there and you're trying to make a decision about something. Maybe a song comes on, or maybe that dime that the person that you adored is no longer in the physical, leaves you in different places, or whatever it is. You'll get some sort of answer to this. You'll know that this synchronicity is not by accident. Carl Jung describes synchronicity as a sense of numinous. It's the feeling of wonderment that we have when something happens and we're like, wow, that just really happened to that can't be an accident. And it's that transcendence that comes when something outside of ourselves give us the glimpse of the divine. One of the things that, we have transcendent experiences, and I've had 2 in my life. One was when I was first living in Hawaii and sitting out in beautiful nature, and all of a sudden just seeing beyond it, knowing that this is so much more than what I believed it to be. This is so bigger than I believed it. This beauty, this elegance of nature. And how about have you had mystical experiences? What have they been? When have you felt this synchronicity in your life? So Viktor Frankl had two. One was when he was digging in a ditch, and all of a sudden he saw a picture of his wife, he didn't know at the time had passed on, and knew that he had to talk to her every day to get through this experience. How important that was. But another one is when he was given these rags to wear. This is what he was going to wear for several years. He reached in the pocket, and there was a piece of paper, a small slip of paper, and it had one of the most powerful Jewish prayers. And he treasured that, and he kept it with him, and he said that prayer every day because he knew that this was no accident, and that helped him get to the next part where he knew that at some point he was going to be released. The other thing he talks about is meaningful work. Are we doing meaningful work? We are the most successful when we believe that our work has meaning. And everything, it can be your job that you do, it can be volunteer work, your service to UCF, everything that you do that's so meaningful. It's having an impact on others. And through meaningful work, that's when we'll see people, the depression that people may have will drop. All the questions, the feeling of victimhood, it drops away because you can't do meaningful work and feel like that. One of the things that Viktor Frankl knew is that one day he was going to create this manuscript again. It was a driver for him. He wanted to get this information out into the world. And obviously it worked because it's still one of the top books in the world. And it's sold, it's sold millions and millions of copies. And then the other one is through the people that we love. And that's a really important one. When we are able to face things with the people that we love, the love for his wife, even though she was no longer there, kept him going through really tough years. The love that he had for his family, the dream of seeing them again, that helped him through a lot of the things that he faced. And he also had this belief that love is going to save humanity. That at the end of the day, no matter what the world was facing, what was happening, is that love would be the thing that saved everybody. And he knew that love is the answer to all of life's problems, and it even transcends death. Because love is it's that substance, that spiritual substance. That's where we're from. We can tell ourselves that we're not, but we are. This is us. This is who and what we are. We come from this field of love. And when we can step into that field of love, everything changes because we're in that vibration. And the last thing he talked about was facing, even when we lose everything or feel that we've lost everything, we can still find meaning. As I was working on this, I spent 3 weeks in Hawaii, and I came back a few days ago. And the second day that I got there was when the wildfires happened. And it really brought it home, the suffering that the people of Maui and the Big Island were facing because they lost everything. They didn't. And they have ohana, which means family. And people are supporting each other and helping each other and stepping forward because they're facing this together. And there's a lot of loss because the devastation around people who lost their lives. So many people lost everything, but they don't view it that way. I saw more of what Viktor Frankl talks about when family came together, ohana. And it doesn't mean that you're a blood relative. It means we're in this together. We can face this together. And when we do that, we're going to do it through love. So this gives life's meaning. The body of Viktor Frankl's work, I think, is still as relevant today as ever. This is how we face walking through life. We're not guaranteed that we're here in this life to that everything's going to be okay all the time because we're having this journey together and we're going to walk through different journeys together. But if we know, if we can look at our lives and we can do it with faith, if we can look for the synchronicities in what we're seeing and have meaningful work, it doesn't have to be a job. Like I said, it could be building this beautiful center that you have, that you're all working together through the people we love, facing the suffering together. Anything can happen. So what synchronicities maybe are you not noticing in your life? What is meaningful to you? And it's okay. Sometimes the thing that might mean something, be most meaningful is today. It might not be that tomorrow. It might be something else. And that's okay because we're having this shift and we're on this journey. We know it's not a destination. People that we love, who are they? Maybe some of the people that we love that we haven't met yet. Facing suffering. Are we doing it together? Are we walking this journey with faith? And I think that as you just ask yourself some of these questions, you'll be able to shift. You don't have to do this tremendous shift right away. Just see what comes up for you. How do you feel? Or you may think I'm nuts. I don't know, but it's okay. I'm not going to be offended. But as we approach each thing, as we look at each thing here, we can make that change. We never have to be victim to anything. And we know that because as Unity Truth students, we talk about that all the time. So what are your moments that you're having? Where can you build in your life that will help with this? I look forward to hearing about your journeys when I'm back in person next time. And talking about maybe some of the changes that we've made. They can be huge changes, they can be small changes. We just have to stay on our journey to be the best Christ that we can be, because that's what we're here for. So I'm so glad to be here today with you, able to share these principles. And I can't wait to see you all in person. We're going to do a meditation now. So if you'd like to get comfortable, we can just get into our best